Human. What if being forced apart brought us even closer to our own humanity and a better way to work by paying attention to what matters most, human connection? WorkHuman Cloud motivates us to always recognize and celebrate each other from anywhere through anything. Leading companies use WorkHuman because this is where the world is heading. After all, without the human, it's just work.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Patty Fletcher here from WorkHuman for this week's episode of hashtag Recognize This. Yes, I know I say it every time. Jimmy Fallon, Justin Timberlake. I can't stop copying them. I hope you enjoyed our commercial that kicked us off. Hopefully you've seen it on TV. We are very, very excited. We believe so much in humanity in the workplace, in enabling work to be more human for every single person who works for a living, that we have invested everything we have, whether it's building this global platform through a national ad campaign that we will be broadening out globally as time passes, venues like this, our WorkHuman Live events that we do. It is all for one reason. It is to enable each of you to create the human workplace where your workforce wants to stay. And that requires one thing. It requires belonging, right? And not belonging in a way where I point at you and say, you belong here. It is belonging where each individual looks in the mirror and says, I belong here. And with that, I would love to say Happy Pride Month to all of you. I am a proud mom. My daughter, Annabella, is a very proud lesbian who's very active in the LGBTQA plus IA plus. I get my acronyms wrong. It's something I'm working on, but it is such an amazing community of supportive individuals. Those who are part of the LGBTQIA++ community, and those who are their allies. I am thrilled today to be joined by Katrina Kibben and Byrne. They're going to share their perspectives on how to create a more human workplace that goes beyond acceptance and into embracing and inclusion and compassion, where empathy meets action. So I would like to welcome them. And before I do, if you are joining us here, if you could just drop your name in the chat, tell us where you are joining us from. Please know that we are monitoring this chat as we go. If you have any questions, please ask them. I know that my guests and I would love to answer them for you. And if we do not get to those questions, we will follow up directly. So we'd love to hear from you. So let us know you're here. And with that, I am thrilled to be joined by Katrina Kibben, who is CEO of Ergs Media. And according to their Twitter profile, they are a tall, opposite of me, non-binary lesbian. And they also have an amazing blog. I love this blog. An amazing blog at KatrinaKibben.com. Katrina and the Ergs Media, which, look, we did not talk about this, Katrina, but I have to know why it's called Ergs, so I will be asking, are passionate about recruiting and copywriting. And so as a result, they've combined these passions into a company that helps recruiters write better job postings. Oh my gosh, there's so much there. There's so much data on that. It's absolutely incredible, right? The words that you use, we have emotional reactions. There are non-binary words. There are very feminine words. There are very masculine words. So really important. Those job descriptions are all about who applies and eventually who gets hired. Super important and a huge component to creating an inclusive workforce of belonging. My friend Aaron is joining us from across the pond in Ireland. He's a Devops engineer here at WorkHuman and a founding member of one of my favorite ERGs. It's the LGBTQIA plus called Sparkle. And we at WorkHuman have what we call the Spark. It's that little thing that's kind of a star, and it's all about catalyzing change. So you might imagine, as a brand person, which is what I am, I love the Sparkle. It is absolutely about shining, right? Letting people see who you really are. But it's also about catalyzing that joy, that embracing that we talked about. So absolutely thrilled. And the mission of Sparkle, it's to support those inclusive cultures and open work environments for everybody. And it's also to ensure, going back to the embracing component, that people feel comfortable. They feel supported at work to be their authentic selves, right? And that goes back to being the place where people want to stay and contribute. Thank you for joining us today, Katrina and Aaron.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We are thrilled to have you. And before we jump in, I just want to say, let's see, hi to Ann Davis-Wesson, who's joining us from Birmingham. Hi to Jen DiMarzio. Oh my gosh, Jen, we all need some sparkle. Hi to Max. Hi to Lauren, Tatiana, Angelo. Oh my goodness. There are so many folks here. So thank you so much. Again, if you folks have questions, let us know what they are. Keep saying hello. This is a fantastic group. So let's go ahead and if it's okay, if we can dive right in. And Katrina, I'd like to start with you. And I'd love to know, what does pride mean to you?
I feel like that's such a big question, right? To try to summarize it in any way or even an hour would be really hard. But I think I want to describe what it feels like, right? And so I still remember my first pride, and I get a little teary thinking about it because I remember it was really small. I was in rural Maine, not the most liberal place in the world.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in, and it was a gated block, basically, that they had quartered off for pride. And it was the first time that I never worried that I was being stared at. It was the first time I looked around and I was surrounded by people where I didn't feel scared. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of those things that it's hard to realize when you're on the outside looking in, about that safety factor and how it's personal, even if you know no one.
It's amazing. You're not alone, right? That's the thing with community. In my book, I wrote a book about women who disrupt. And in the end of the book, I share why I wrote the book. And I'm Armenian. I'm the granddaughter of two refugees who were orphaned from the genocide. And I shared this story about an Armenian writer going to Armenia and being asked to meet this very elderly woman. And he went and met her, and he thought it was all about, I'm this big celebrity, I'm here to meet her. But it was actually about her meeting him. She was 90-something years old. She was Armenian. Her mother was Armenian. They were being forced off a cliff, literally, and to their death. And it was awful. And one of the soldiers kind of took her and raised this young woman who became this elderly woman and as his own. And the reason for that meeting, Katrina, was not for him to meet her, this celebrity. It was for her to meet him, because she believed she was the last Armenian on earth. So that whole feeling about, I'm like in tears, and I cannot wait for my daughter to experience what you just described. You're not alone. You are safe. And I'm so happy you shared that, right? It is all about the feeling, and that you can then pass that on.
Well, and imagine, right? I grew up as a military brat. So my family, both of my parents are active duty Army. I grew up on military bases where it was literally illegal to be gay. I had never seen a gay person. I surely did not know what trans was, what identity was, nothing. Everything was uniforms, fit, and form, march. And so to walk into a pride event, Aaron's smiling because he knows he knows that it's one of those moments where like a kid in a toy store. Imagine like walking into, whatever the biggest possible toy store was when you were a kid and being like, wow, that's pride.
Gosh, I love that. I absolutely love that. I have to admit, one of the first Pride parades, or actually the first Pride parade, not one of, and I don't even know if it was called a Pride parade, was so long ago. I think it was like the mid-90s in the Castro. I was living on the other coast. I'm in Boston now. And that feeling of community, of pride, this is who we are and we are together. And to have grown up without that, Katrina, is incredible. And to your point, it came right down to the mold of the clothing, right? So it's just, thank you for describing it so beautifully. And I hope each of you listening in have felt that as well. So I have another question. Erin, if it's okay, I'd like to start with you on this one. So we just talked about pride, and I love that Katrina talked about it in terms of not a word, but how it made her feel, right? What was that experience like? And it's wonderful because it was a community experience at the individual level. But when it comes to pride in the workplace, is it different this year? I grew up in enterprise tech, and we were very early movers in the pride movement. It was amazing. And it was around the time of kind of It Gets Better. It was a little bit before that. You might remember that. But we had some folks who had worked at the company I was at who were personally impacted, and we did a big video series there. But there was a lot of movement there. And the truth is there were business reasons as well as humanity reasons. The business reason was our talent pool. There are so many members of the LGBTQIA plus community who are in enterprise tech. And if they do not feel like they belong, that is not a good thing, right? These are incredible human beings. So that world, the big consulting, but in other industries, it was always a shock to me, and quite frankly, an area of embarrassment that this was not adopted across industries. So I'm wondering, Erin, from your perspective, is it changing across industries, pride in the workplace? Has the conversation I think, Katrina, that might have been in our prep, we were talking about the narratives that are all around us that reinforce. Are those narratives changing?
I think from my perspective, I think is change, and there is kind of, different workplaces and industries are picking up on building more inclusive workspaces and being more aware of their LGBTQIA plus employees. There's still a lot of work to do in these other places. Not every industry is as caught up, I would say, as the tech industry. I think the tech industry kind of leads the way, because I think a lot of people fall into, I know personally, a lot of my friends here that I grew up with that are LGBT would be in the tech community, and they would be part of this community themselves. And a lot of them find themselves in the IT industry, and a lot of them do find it's a good community, and the workplace, that kind of industry that we kind of work in, is, I think sometimes I feel like it leads the charge, because I feel like it's out there, it's promoting more, and it's a lot of from personal experience, it gives us a chance to be who we really are. And I think the conversation, it needs to grow more. I think there's a lot in especially when it comes to other members like the trans community and the LGBT community. I think a lot more kind of would like more conversation around them and what they go through, and non-binary folks as well. A lot of more conversations about things like that. There's a lot more to do, but I think we are on the right path, and I think we can keep going with that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There are demographics within the community who are not as represented in terms of voice at the table. And you just mentioned, right, non-binary and the trans community. And I hear it from my daughter all the time, and she's correcting me, and she should be correcting me. And with me, it's because I think, okay, it's not, I'm not seeing it, I'm not feeling it, and I'm human, but that's quite frankly BS. It's actual BS. And so thank you for bringing that up. And I do want to talk to you a little bit more about Sparkle ERG in a second. And Katrina, I have a specific question for you, but before I move from you, Erin, from an ERG perspective, and so again, old life, it was very like we had a lot of female ERGs, because of that industry that I worked in, the LGBTQIA plus community at the time it was LGBT. They were very powerful in coming together, probably to create that community, Katrina, you talked about. And it was very interesting to see how different it was. The early ERGs that I had experienced with women were more kind of the place to go to kind of vent. It was such a feeling of celebration with LGBTQIA plus community. It was awesome, right? It felt like Sparkle. So how can, from your experience, how can ERGs help organizations to visualize what success does look like when it comes to this topic? Is there a goal?
Well, I think for ERGs, because ERGs are mainly made up of people from the community. Now we do have our allies as well, and we have a few allies in Sparkle. But I think it's important to listen to ERGs. Because we kind of tend to go off, and I know like anyone in the ERG, they do their own research and they kind of find out different things. And even during this Pride Month, we've kind of found out more information about things we didn't know about. So I think including ERGs in conversations and being able to kind of build together with human resources, with other people in the community, with directors, I think it's important to kind of have the connection in order to help build that and visualize it. That what it looks like, because I don't think there's one way to say, oh, this is what it should look like, because we're all human, we're all different, we're all, we all don't fit in it, we don't all fit in the same mold. So to say there's no one right answer for this, but I think in order for us to move forward and to be successful and to visualize it, I think we need to be able to collaborate and come together as a bigger whole community. So.
Yeah. So, Erin, what you just said is so critical, and it's one of the tenets of a more human workplace. And that is, one size does not fit all. And quite frankly, it never has. And ERGs are amazing. They have shifted. They're starting to be more funded by, or, at least sponsored by organizations, whereas before it was by the people for the people. It still is that. But there does seem to be a component, right? So I'm part of the leadership team. We listen. Right? We talk about the ERGs at the leadership closed door sessions. What are we learning? You've invited us to that table, and thank you for that. And so, Katrina, on that elk, looking at this not only as a member of the community, but as a CEO, what is your view on ERGs and the impact they could have? And is there a way to do it wrong?
So, unfortunately, I think there's definitely a way to do it wrong, because so often, and you mentioned this, we try a one-size-fits-all approach. But we know best in class does not mean best for you, right? Best in class means that someone else did it well. And when it comes to ERG, the entire point of that ERG is to elevate the people. And so I really feel, as an executive and as someone who works with other teams thinking about these initiatives, you have to start with a conversation about who we want to become. And often that is one part action, but a big part of it is, how do I want this to feel? What does it feel like when this new process, this new system, this new action rolls out? How can we make people feel like they belong and they are safe, and that they can become who they want to be at this company? Because it's really easy to convince yourself that you will never become the executive when you look up at that C-suite and you don't see anyone who looks like you or has a life that even mirrors any aspect of yours.
Those optics are so critical, right? So critical. And it might not be Look, just like being a woman doesn't fully define who I am, but it certainly informs who I am. Being a mom doesn't define who I am, it informs, right? Being a marketer, blah, all that stuff. And being part of an underrepresented population and looking up and going, where are other people I can at least relate to? It's been a big deal. It's been really difficult. And that's part of the kind of work that I'm doing and why I'm doing. It's not easy, right? It's not easy to be an executive. It's not easy to work in tech. It's not easy to do any of those things. And I'm so passionate about them. But I also understand the optics, like you understand the optics. A little bit going back to some of the prep work we were doing together around, gosh, someone's daughter sees Katrina and all of a sudden she knows she can be a CEO, right? That's a big, big deal. So I love that. And I love that you keep bringing in, this really goes to the human component of feeling seen, of feeling like there is a place for you, not only in the workplace, but quite frankly, in this world. And it's a meaningful place. And just like Erin, what you've done with Sparkle, and I'd like to unpack that a little bit if it's okay, what you and the founding members and now the broader group has done is you've actually said, we got this table, we have room for you at the table. We have made a place for you at the table. And I'm talking about not just other folks in the community, but folks who are allies, right? And in that, you want us there. This is a human discussion and it takes all of us. So with that, I'd love for you to talk about Sparkle. Again, love that name. Can you talk a bit about the group, what you're focused on overall, what you're focused on this month? And also, putting you a little bit on the spot, and I apologize because we keep going back to the Maya Angelou quote. Probably it resonates in most people's minds. It's not what you do, what you give, all that. It's how you make people feel. A bit about the feeling you believe that an ERG like Sparkle is enabling in people and maybe enabling in you. Oh, we can't hear.
Oh, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yep,
Cool.
Here we go.
Sorry. Apologies for that. My table started rattling for no reason, so I didn't want anyone else to hear it. So today,
the joys of live broadcasting.
Don't we just love it? Don't we just love it?
Great.
So Sparkle has been, for me personally anyway, so Sparkle has been such a lifeline during COVID. So Sparkle, we started the conversation about Sparkle back in Ignite in 2020. We started kind of talking. There's a group of us standing around Ignite.
So sorry, can you just share what Ignite is? Oh,
yes. So Ignite is at this, where we all come together as a company and we all kind of share in our success. It's such a brilliant kind of, it was my first Ignite because before COVID. That's where we all come together. We kind of have over 3 days where we come together and we kind of share what success we've had over the years, and we talk about discussions. We have keynote speakers. We have so much more that goes on there. It's such a great celebration. It's great as well for things like this. This collaboration happened at at Ignite. So this conversation began there, and then which was January 2020, and we kind of started this conversation there. We kind of moved it on back into the workplace. We reached out to some people in the US, so it became a cross-regional thing. So it wasn't for us. It was important because we are, we're headquartered in Dublin and in Boston. So it was important that we have both sides represented in this ERG. And then, but we launched this time last year. So we actually kind of formally came out as a ERG last year, and we actually used that terminology for our launch back then in October. So back in June, when we kind of launched as Sparkle, we invited all these people to join our Sparkle ERG Slack group. We had over 300 people join, which is a fantastic number of people to join our Slack group, where we kind of drove home what our aims and what we aim to achieve and what our mission statement was. So one of our aims is to kind of provide a non-judgmental environment and safe space where humans can fully express their own individuality and bring their authentic self to work. And that was one of our biggest aims that we have as part of Sparkle. And it's something that we kind of aim to kind of push everything that we do, everything that kind of our pillars. So we have 3 pillars that we kind of keep us informed on what we want to do. And they are kind of educate, celebrate, and collaborate. So I know, going back to your question, if I'm, because my headphones were kind of coming in and out, so I was trying to fix that there. I think the reaction from the company itself was amazing. I think we were all kind of, I just felt so overwhelmed by the sheer amount of volume of people. So in a company that's only just over 600 people, half the company are in Sparkle, in the ERG, in the Slack group. They are talking with us, they're engaging with us. As you said, bring the allies to the table. It's such a huge conversational tool that we can have to help bring Sparkle up and be this big, bright future for us. So one of the things that, I've only been in the company now myself, only 2 years, so I'm not even in the company that long myself. But I've been part of the conversation for a lot longer. My mom actually works here. My mom is in WorkHuman. She's nearly been there 20 years. So I've been part of WorkHuman culture for quite a long time. So, I've never been afraid to be me in this workplace. It's always been great. But I've wanted to, something to highlight other people that come in. One of our goals is to make sure that everyone knows about us when we come into Sparkle. So when you join WorkHuman, so one of the jobs that we've done is we've brought together, we've spoken with the teams, and we've been able to kind of, push that to the forefront where people join WorkHuman. They are given an opportunity to learn about the ERGs. So we have, not including us, there is Sparkle, there's the Women's and Allies Network, there's DEI, there's all these different orgs within WorkHuman, and we've been given this opportunity to send in a video. So when people start on WorkHuman, especially now that we're, socially distanced, we're not in the office, that people get to hear about us and they know there's a space for them within WorkHuman. So that's one thing in the future. We just want the future looks bright for Sparkle. I think we're going to sparkle, and we're going to make sure everything sparkles. So, big.
Absolutely. And Aaron, I have to say, so for your mom, for folks who don't know, WorkHuman has been around for 21 years. So Aaron's mom is really a founding member of this WorkHuman team, right? And really, this is a company that understands culture is everything. It governs everything. So Aaron, I love that you have always felt comfortable here. And we have Jess Clay who has joined us. Jess is our brand visual lead. And one of the first things she helped me focus on, because I started in April of last year, was the Sparkle logo, right? It was so exciting. And the joy was unbelievable, Aaron, from everybody. We were all so happy for folks, so happy to be included. It's a tremendous amount of work. I do want to stop and say, first of all, let's see, Martina Campbell, right on, yay Sparkle. Paula Medeiros, you could not have a better fashion sense or commentary. Thank you so much. Isa Parker, I am so sorry if I'm butchering your first name, but I agree. That safe environment is critical. And Katrina, I think that's what you were talking about when you're talking about that first experience in Maine. Of course, now I want to know where in Maine, but that first experience in Maine, right, where you felt safe because you could be yourself. And like you said, nobody was watching you. They weren't, right? It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Oh, Christina, it's absolutely dream team, the Byrne family. Absolutely fantastic. So Katrina, I want to get your perspective on something. And this is something I've been wondering about, something I think about a lot, especially in the work I do around DEI in the workplace, and something Aaron and I chatted a bit about before this, before LinkedIn Live here. And that is that whole idea about coming out at work. And if you have thoughts on that, and is there what could be different? What could be better? Just some insight, and then practicality around it would be, I need to have this conversation, and I want to have it right now on LinkedIn Live.
Well, I'm listening to how amazing WorkHuman is, and I can't help but think, wow, what a privilege. What a privilege to work at a company where you know that you can be out about exactly who you are, and you don't worry for a second about how the consequences might roll out or what the world might look like for you. Because I have to tell you, that has not been my experience in the least, right? I remember that first pride, and also working at a company where every single day I would change the pronouns of my partner. I would make up stories about my weekend. I had curly hair down to here, if anyone can picture it. I wore a lot of pink, a lot. It's not my color. I just want to be clear about that. But I remember being so convinced that who I was going to stand in between me and my future. And mind you, that wasn't forever ago. I mean, I'm older. I'm not a young chicken anymore, but this was not 20 plus years ago. This is 15 years ago. Some of you were also entering the workplace around this time where couldn't even get married in most states, right? And simultaneously, you're trying to build a career, and we choose. That's the part we don't talk about often enough. If people choose whether they want to live an authentic life or they want their career, and that happens for so many people, whether the world is transforming or not, because some of those seeds were planted for us early in our lives, where we were told that we should be scared. And we saw in the media over and over again the representation of trans, gay, intersex, non-binary people, and seeing over and over again that those people were killed. They aren't CEOs. I'm not opening the Fortune 100 and seeing a bunch of queer people, right? I see us on the front page of the headline because we were murdered. It's different. And so I think when we talk about coming out at work, I think we have to talk about the celebration and the beautiful places like Work Human. And we also have to talk about how we live in our community and how we speak to other people so that they can become seeds in other companies who are not where Work Human is, right? It's about how we can influence the people we meet after we walk out of this session right here. And we can help them feel safer in their community so that they know how to be a safe manager, a safe partner, a safe friend when they go into the office and they're looking to collaborate, celebrate, and live those pillars, even if they don't live in a world that's well structured with great ERGs and support from executive teams.
Yeah, and if you can't find it, to your point, it's a choice, right? And so trust me, looking at the workforce right now, looking at all those jobs out there, I'm here to tell everybody there's going to be a mass exodus, and we need talented people more than talented people need us as employers. And so that is, it's so incredibly critical. And there are so many underrepresented populations who have had, quite frankly, the fear of God put into them. And the LGBTQIA plus community, that narrative, I'm listening to you, Katrina, and I'm just going, that's why my neighbor was so fearful for her son. That is why so many of my colleagues, of my friends, have been fearful. And you know what? It's so awful that I just talk about waking up my unconscious bias to kind of call BS to myself. I forgot that it wasn't until recently that you could not marry, and you could not marry whoever the heck it is you wanted to marry when you were in the United States. I remember that as this straight white woman going, we should all be embarrassed that this is just still a topic of conversation. And it's disgusting. And so the fact that I automatically, like a very almost an American kind of narrative, we Americans are and do this far more, and that is, okay, it's all done, right? And it's gone. That's not gone from your narrative, Katrina. I can hear that in you. I can. And it's my responsibility. I'm just going to say, and I'd really ask the folks who are dialed in here, who listen to the recording, allyship is so much more than I'm on your side. It is being in the room and advocating when our brothers, our sisters, are not in the room. It is standing up and saying, that's not okay. Don't laugh at those jokes. Don't ignore those jokes. It is time to change the damn conversation. It is massive. And we had talked a little bit about, and I said I wouldn't bring it up. Of course, I'm going to. Allyship is such an important word, but being that enemy of the status quo is really kind of what it takes. And that is absolutely critical. And Isa Parker, what Katrina just said really reiterates what you just said, which is that safe environment, which also brings in, you brought up something else, Katrina, and that is the narrative, right? The words. And Aaron, you know this from being basically born and brought up with Work Human, that we love words, right?
Yeah.
And so we have over 50 million points of human connection in our database. And so that human connection is authentic. It's people sending each other recognition, as we call them. Those recognitions are based on the value-based behaviors of an organization, which is why one of the special things for Work Human customers and working here at Work Human is, unlike most organizations where people couldn't tell you, wouldn't recognize the mission, vision, values of their organization, even if they tripped over it, because ours are all about living that, not looking at it in addition to your work, but living your work and how you do your work, that we're able to see how people authentically talk to each other. They're not doing it so HR can look. And neither are we, by the way. What we are doing is trying to understand what those human connections are, where they are awesome, keep going, but what are those things that we can stop doing and start doing? And what we found in the data, and Aaron, you might know this, and Katrina, I'm not sure we talked about this, but when we look at the data, when we look at unconscious bias, about 20 to 30% of those written communications we share with each other, even the positive ones, are riddled with unconscious bias. You did a great job considering it's your first month, right? Like those kinds of things. And so, I often look at things through a feminist lens, and I love to do that mostly to annoy people. And those of you old enough to have watched Mystery Science Theater 2000, that's me, but through the feminist lens. And so, I'm constantly pointing out misogyny because the narratives are so bad. But it's the same here, and I thank you for calling that out to me, both of you, and Katrina. I'd love to dive in on that if we can. Let's talk about the narratives. Let's talk about the importance of words, whether it's a microaggression or a full-on, oh my God, I cannot believe you said that to me. And this is how, to both of your points, how it makes me feel. How do we change the words that we use? What does that look like at work?
I think being aware. So being self-aware. I know I've in the past been my own self has not been aware, and then writing emails really quickly, writing Slack messages really quickly, and just sending them, and then reading them back, going, that kind of doesn't really sound like something I would say, or it doesn't really sound like it's meant to say. And then you get these messages back going, did you mean it like this or did you mean like that? So and then you all this confusion. So I think taking your time, really kind of just reading what you wrote, and kind of understanding that, like even kind of in work recently, I was writing saying a thank you to someone for some amazing work they've done for me and helping me out in doing my daily jobs. And I was writing out kind of messages kind of just really quickly because I was jumping to another meeting, not really paying attention, kind of just typing it out. And then we have the Inclusion Advisor as part of the recognition program. So which kind of highlights some things that might have you have said, like unconscious bias that you have written in. And it highlighted that for me. And I went, oh, I didn't realize that's what that, like, because it's something I would have said all the time. Now, if you ask me what it was, I can't tell you at this moment in time, but I think it could have been maybe a gender assumption. It could have been a gender role. It could have been what Patty had brought up and said, it's great for your first time, but it wasn't meant that way. What it was meant as is, you did a great job, and I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful for you for helping me out in this time, as much as possible. And I think it's just, I think in terms of where we are at now, as part of Sparkle, back in January we did a workshop, the workshop for all Work Human, about pronouns, and we're talking about pronouns and how avoid using kind of gendered language. So try not to say folks. Try say folks. Don't try to say guys. Don't try because I'm very conscious of saying that's something that I've been working on personally. Is that I say hey guys all the time, or when I'm typing hey guys. So I try to say hey everyone, hey folks, hey just try to keep it as kind of gender neutral as possible.
Yeah, and so some years ago when the whole machine learning AI piece started coming specifically to the recruiting side, right? The talent acquisition side. We used machine learning to tag the words that were female, that were male, and that were androgynous, and saw the impacts of, the bro culture job descriptions for tech and the very female, soft, nurturing kind of words that would probably attract more women to things like teaching and into nursing. And it words are so important, but that's only part of it, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah.
I'm jumping at the bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, and I'm jumping at the bit here because, like, this is your business. This is what you're in. And, like, it is an important part, but it's not all of it, and we cannot stop there. And I'm terrified we're going to stop there. Can you finish the sentence for us, Katrina?
Okay. I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a minute, so everyone stick with me here, all right? Our workforce was created in a capitalist, racist, biased society, right? We are built on that infrastructure, whether we like it or not, everyone around the world. And so the thing that we have to accept is that not only is there bias built into what we say, so boy word, girl word, which I have an issue with in itself, being a non-binary human, but it's the next layer of how our tactics are influencing outcomes, because job postings were created to keep people out, not get great people in. And so recently I did a 100-year research study of job postings to understand the tactical influence of what we do and how it stops great people from getting the jobs they deserve. I mean, all 3 years media does is rewrite job postings because there are that many bad ones. And I wanted to understand if I was stopping someone from applying. And let me give you 2 examples that you've probably never even thought of. And then this is not about pride. This is about everyone, okay? Number 1, requires car to attend meetings. Public transportation, Uber, I can go on and on, right? That's privilege bias, right? We've just let our bias creep in. Here's another one that is going to make people gasp. Every time I say this, people are like, years of experience. When you say 15 years of experience, you're asking for someone 15 years older. You don't even know what 15 years means versus 10 years. And I've tried this test on hundreds of people around the world, and not one could actually tell me the difference between 13 and 14, 14 and 15. Yet we rely on that bias constantly. Because let me just give you one example. Let's say, Patty, you and I are both CMOs, right? I was a CMO at one point in my career, but I was a CMO of a 100-person company. A CMO of a 600-person company who's running TV ads and doing everything, right? We don't have the same experience, but we can both say we have 5 years of CMO experience. That doesn't qualify us for the same work, and we need to stop setting these numeric barriers and, frankly, artificial barriers throughout job postings, throughout all of our attraction content that tells people they don't belong when they really do, but we do not understand the requirements.
Okay, Katrina, look, stay on that darn soapbox and never get off. Just make room for Aaron and I. And also we're now best friends, and you're not allowed to be mad at that. I don't care. We are best friends. Aaron, come on in. We'll make it BFFs forever. Yes, excellent. So look, what you just said is really critical. So number 1, we are not talking about blame and shame here. I'm jumping on the soapbox. There are 150 different unconscious biases that play at our brains at any given time just at work. Thousands as we walk around. It starts at the age of 3. So we all just need to get past it. It's called the human condition. Welcome to the world. The challenge is when you become woke to something and you continue to do it, that's when it becomes discriminatory. But you do have unconscious discriminatory practices as well, and you just shared some of them. Like you said, Katrina, it's been almost 100 years since we have thought about the constructs at work, all of which were based on middle-aged white men, right? The closest one was in the 1950s. That's a whole other topic, and that's about how successful decision-making is made A to B decision making. It's based on hierarchy, justice, and it's ridiculous, right? Rules, because those mean things different to everybody. Katrina, Aaron, your version of those things are probably different than mine, right? They're probably different than my kids. There's so many other things there. Carol Gilligan, of course, did the same exact research with women who weren't all white, and found out that their version of successful decision-making was stakeholder-based in relation to the impact on people and projects, right? There are many other ways. That's rejected as successful decision-making in most boardrooms and C-suites because people believe it takes too long to make decisions. Then you have a WorldCommon and Enron, and you start paying attention. So all of this to say, there is no, at least in the US, there is no one major demographic in the US workforce, not from a race perspective, not from LGBTQ perspective, not from any of those kinds of typical demographic perspectives. It is time to rethink our workforce practices. 9 key decision points where unconscious bias matters the most. You are focusing on a very important one, and that is the talent coming in. It is the opportunity for all of us to grow in awareness, not blame and shame, just to do better at a human race. Thank you for allowing that for me. I will come off my soapbox. And Jess Clay, who's tuned in here, who works with me on a daily basis, Jess, on behalf of everybody, I'm so sorry for that, but she's probably not surprised by this discussion at all. And Katrina, to underscore you, and Aaron, I'm hoping that you can back me up here. This is an area of passion for us at WorkHuman. I do feel fortunate, not in a human work, let's have a commercial, but the fact that we're all aware and we're committed, right? Because it's important to do that. You have to be committed to the humans you work with, your employees, your contractors, your customers. So with all of that, before I close out, Katrina, I have a few things to say. So one thing to ask is you need to explain why your company's called what it is. And the second is your comment about not being, I think you said, a spring chicken. You certainly play one on TV, my friend. So there we go. So tell us why 3 Ears Media.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to give you the, 3 Ears Media, extra ears, more listening. And I truly do believe that, in that we need to listen more than we talk. I believe that's that's the truth in any role. Let's be real, right? Yeah. I think the world would be a lot better. But here's the real reason why it's named 3 Ears Media. I have 2 very sweet dogs. Their names are Lyric and Ruby. And one of them they have 4 ears, just to be clear. But one has an ear that stands straight up and the other one is down, and the other 2 are straight up. It's a Boston Terrier. And the 2 of them go everywhere together. They're the best team because the little Boston Terrier didn't learn how to walk until she was almost 6 months old. And she's been a really special dog to have because she reminds me how much we have to slow down. But the 2 of them go everywhere together. And when I was naming my company, I did a spin in my chair. I'm not even kidding. And I saw them. It's 3 Ears Media.
I love that. As a dog mom, I am all in on all of this. You can say whatever the heck you want about my kids. You say anything about my dog, you're going down. You're going down. Yeah, absolutely. I just want to call out a few folks here. Right, Kristen? What in the world? That was in response to the whole 10 to 15 year thing. And I'm with you on experience, just like also tier 1 schools. Are you effing kidding me? Like, that's just ridiculous. Hello. Let's see Wendy, I'll tell you, you come on this soapbox with us. You can be part of the BFF group. Sophia, no problem. This is recorded. You will actually, there we go, Max. You will be able to tune in so you don't miss anything of what these brilliant guests of mine have shared. Aaron, Katrina, please come back. You're incredible. We will just book a month of nonstop chatter. It'll be amazing. But I love the work that you do. I am so grateful to walk the earth at the same time as the both of you. Thank you for making a place for folks like my daughter to feel like she will be able to create the change she wants to in this world. Thank you for that. And thank you for each of you tuning in. I get very emotional when I talk about my kids and my dog. So thank you for tuning in. Please come back on June 23rd, where my colleagues Nuvs and John Leahy will join me, and we're going to talk about, Aaron, you might know them from the ERG.
I do, yeah.
Don't worry, I'll introduce you. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence to ERGs. What are those things we can do to build a more human workplace? Thank you so much, everybody. Happy Wednesday.